Here, let's watch the whole thing.
It's less than a
Witkoff,
week
Kushner on
since the
Israel-Hamas
release of the
deal.
remaining...
Remember, this is the new Barry Weiss. This is the new 60 Minutes. This is literally why Barry Weiss became the editor-in-chief of CBS and specifically 60 Minutes, which she has complete editorial control over. So remember that when you're thinking about, or remember that when you are listening to what they have to say. The only part of this that I find kind of funny is that it comes with the admission that it was Israel that needed to be pushed. Obviously, this is just like a glaze fest for Trump's guys, for Trump's team, but they literally inadvertently admit that it was Israel that needed to be pushed. No other way to cut it. You can't, like, at a certain point, you have to be like, why were we different?
People should understand that Netanyahu, the Israelis, bombed the peacemakers, bombed the negotiating team.
We woke up the next morning to find out that there had been this attack.
Wow.
And by the way, Leslie, it had a metastasizing effect because the Qataris were critical to the negotiation, as were the Egyptians and the Turks. And we had lost the confidence of the Qataris.
Are you serious? You mean to tell me that if you allow the apartheid regime that is doing a genocide to bomb the third-party negotiations host nation that houses the largest American military force in the region where U.S. Central Command is, then all of a sudden they're going to be upset about that? That's like after they actually did perfidy and set up a fake ceasefire negotiation? I'm so surprised that a country would actually retaliate at such a severe violation of their sovereignty. I still, to this day, for the record, maintain the position that America knew a lot more about this strike ahead of time than they claim. I think it's absolutely face-saving for Americans to behave, the American government to behave as though they were oblivious to the strike ahead of time. And I think this interview itself actually reveals that reality a little bit because they have a hard time building a straightforward narrative.
Whether the president himself knew of the attack in advance or not, he wanted Netanyahu to apologize to the Qataris.
Whether he knew about it or not. Yeah, if the strike would have taken out the negotiators for Hamas, Trump absolutely would have taken credit for it, saying he knew all along and had planned it, and that now it's time for a different governance for the people of Gaza, and they would have gone forward with their fucking Gaza Riviera project.
Because they weren't...
Bargaining chip.
What did Hamas gain by keeping these hostages? You had tens of thousands of Palestinians who were killed in these wars. You have half of Gaza or more.
Wait, what? Once again, I feel like this is saying the quiet part out loud a little bit. Yeah, he says war, it's bullshit. We all know that, but of course he's not going to say it's a genocide. But he's saying the quiet part out loud here where he's like, yeah, what did Hamas gain by keeping the hostages? Israel doesn't give a shit about the hostages. Israel was just like blowing up every piece of land they could see from their fighter jets. These realtors pretending like they're capable of this high level shit is a mind dog. American foreign policy is so ass that unironically, Donald Trump's narcissistic behavior might have actually led to a long-standing commitment, because the same deal was on the table when the reasonable minds were at the table, the Anthony Blinkens of the world, the Brett McGurks of the world, and they didn't do it. Like, low-key, it's one of those situations where, like, having a real dumbass who's just like, I don't know, I don't believe you, instead of, like, a guy who studied this at Harvard and made it his life's mission to throat Israel's, is probably going to do a better job, which so far they have done a different job. It's not a great job. It's still horrifying, but this is the situation is so dire, and I keep repeating this over and over again. The situation is so fucking dire that a malignant narcissist and his own selfish ambitions, whether he wants to make a deal or whether he's offended that Israel bombed a Gulf nation that had recently given him a fat bribe, or whether because he wants a Nobel Peace Prize or like people to like promote him or whatever, can play a better role in managing a ceasefire, or at least making Israel commit to a ceasefire, as opposed to the ultra-Zionists who simply wanted Israel to do a genocide. It's crazy that is the dynamic here. Like, Trump's ambition to get political credit has caused this administration so far to force Israel to commit. And Israel is still violating the ceasefire, for the record. But I feel as though as soon as they bombed, like the fact that the Trump administration immediately leaked to the press that Israel's soldiers were killed because of unexploded ordnance and it wasn't actually Hamas. And then Trump came out and was like, maybe it wasn't Hamas, but it was a different gang and Israel got it wrong. Like that in and of itself is still doing ass covering for Israel as it routinely violates the ceasefire. But this is no like Rafah red line violation. You know what I mean? Like Biden's Rafah red line was bullshit. It was complete and utter bullshit. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but so far they have done a better job. Oh my God. Chicago Institute of Politics got Kirby as the new Institute of Politics director. Are you f***ing kidding me? Oh, yeah. This genocide dare piece of shit. Remember, I went to the Chicago Institute of Politics and I spoke there. Guess that's not happening anytime soon. Trump has the advantage of time for Ukraine and Gaza, to be fair, but credit will be due. I mean, it's not first of all, no, for all the leverage, I would go so far as to say, for all the leverage that America has over Israel, Biden could have packed this shit up as opposed to Donald Trump. That's number one. And for the leverage that at the time, the battle lines look like between Russia and Ukraine, Biden had significantly more leverage than Donald Trump in terms of bringing Russia to the table, which the American administration refused to do so. So no, Biden f***ed it up on both accounts, 100%. Biden and Trump have equal power over Israel. They have ultimate power over Israel. But between Biden and Trump, one party had more power to actually bring Russia to the table and design a far better deal, and it was Biden. Biden had a far better opportunity to push for a ceasefire than Donald Trump does. That's why Donald Trump is flailing right now on Ukraine and Russia. That's why he keeps in private correspondence and behind closed doors virtually demanding that Zelensky shut the fuck up and take it. But then also in public, he's like, oh, well, you know, we'll give you tomahawks, maybe. Maybe we'll give you tomahawks. Russia, you hear that? We're going to give them tomahawks. There's a reason for that. It's because the battle lines are drawn. It is what it is. There's virtually nothing that unlimited weapons can do to change the dynamic of this war at this point because Ukraine has run out of manpower. Ironically enough, when Donald Trump says, When Donald Trump says, like, you don't have the cards to Volodymyr Zelensky, he actually doesn't hold the cards either. America also doesn't hold the cards any longer. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah. Donald Trump urged Volodymyr Zelensky to accept Putin's terms or be destroyed by Russia. U.S. President tossed aside maps of Ukraine frontline in volatile White House meeting. At least he's learned to not do this in public, by the way, because what he did to Zelensky the first time was f***ing insane. At least now he knows to play ball in public as opposed to how he talks to Zelensky in private. That was one of the things that I kept reiterating at the time when I was like, I can't believe it. He's like cooking his own position by publicly shitting on Zelensky. He's a real moron. Anyway, let's get back to this.
You decide to go to Gaza. Mm-hmm. And what did you see?
It looked almost like a nuclear bomb had been set off in that area. And then you see...
Just out of curiosity, how did the unexploded ordnance get to the place where it killed the soldiers? I mean, it could be deployed munitions that didn't explode, or it could be a fucking IED that was hidden there a long time ago. It could also be, it could be unexploded Israeli munitions as well, whether it be deployed munitions by the Israeli Air Force or even their own fucking bombs that they've put together that they forgot. Because remember, they've been doing a lot of controlled demolitions in the region. But considering the metric tonnage of munitions that were deployed on this tiny sliver of land that received 13 Hiroshima atom bombs worth of munitions, it is much more likely that it is unexploded ordnance from Israeli bombing campaigns. It could still be like an IED. It could. But if you're looking at like what's more likely, I think it's more likely that it was an Israeli bomb.
These people moving back, and I asked the IDF, where are they going? Like, I'm looking around, these are all ruins. And they said, well, they're going back to the areas where their destroyed home was, onto their plot, and they're going to pitch a tent. And it's very sad because you think to yourself, they really have nowhere else to go.
Would you say now, having been there, that it was genocide?
No.
Man, f*** you.
No.
Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I wonder why you can't say that. Obviously, they're not going to say that. They're genocide dares. They're literally party to the fucking criminal statute. They are belligerents in this genocide. Of course, they're not going to be like, yeah, we've been doing a genocide for the past 2 years, actually. And at least for the past 10 that we've been in charge, we have only kept up the intensity of the genocide. Yeah, they're not going to incriminate themselves. Yeah. They're not going to be like, yeah, we were doing a genocide. What of it? Maybe in the next 5 years, maybe in the next 10 years, if things go the way that they've been going with the Trump administration's like seizure of power, complete consolidation of power, and how comfortable they get and how unaccountable they are by international organs of justice and all this stuff. Maybe they'll admit it. They'll be like, yeah, we did a genocide. Who gives a f? What are you going to do about it? You want a genocide? You want to be victim to a genocide? Shut the fuck up.
And every time you mention President Trump.
To President Donald J. Trump.
I had to stop because they were cheering.
Thank you, Trump! Thank you, Trump!
But then you...
No pushback from the anchor. Leslie Stahl already is like super pro-Israel to begin with. And regardless of the pro-Israel position of 60 Minutes, the reason why the Redstones sold CBS was to Larry Ellison's son, David Ellison, was because of 60 Minutes. Because 60 Minutes did one 60 Minutes piece specifically on America's involvement in Israel's death and destruction campaign in Gaza. And Shari Redstone was like, that's unbelievable. We have to stop this. I cannot believe how incredibly anti-Semitic these guys are. This is my own media company. This is my own media product. I can't believe it. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it to someone so they can whip it up into shape. They also thought that the Trump administration suing CBS would actually cause the editorial independence to go away. So make no mistake, the reason why this piece is coming out in the way that it is right now is because of Barry Weiss. And the reason why this is happening is because 60 Minutes was deliberately sold because they thought it was not pro-Israel enough.
Tried to thank Netanyahu and...
To Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Every time you said his name,
I know.
they booed.
Look, that's how they feel. I don't feel that way. And I thought he steered his country through some really difficult...
Yeah, the original editor-in-chief of 60 Minutes resigned as well after the Redstone piece came out.
Difficult circumstances.
Because that was what triggered the Redstones to sell CBS News and 60 Minutes, to relinquish control over this media product, and to sell it to Larry Ellison's son, David Ellison. But before that happened, they also put in an interim editor-in-chief to oversee the 60 Minutes pieces that they were doing, investigative reporting pieces that they were doing. And that's the reason why the actual editor-in-chief of 60 Minutes resigned. This is before they even sold us. So when you say, oh, why didn't they actually personally change how 60 Minutes was doing reporting if they didn't like it? They did do that. They did. They brought in an outsider to limit the editorial independence that 60 Minutes had, which, again, remember, they were already pro-Israel. Like, Leslie Stahl literally interviewed a Mossad operative that blew up the faces of children in Lebanon, and they were yucking it up. Like, they talked about how awesome this act of terror was. That same 60 Minutes was considered too anti-Israel, too anti-Semitic.
People think that he prolonged the incarceration of the hostages for his own political future.
I don't think that's the case.
October 7th for me was a shattering day. Since then, my heart has not been complete.
But then Kushner brought up the Gazans.
I'm going to keep it $150. If there's anyone that's like almost single-handedly responsible for October 7th outside of Benjamin Netanyahu, it would be Jared Kushner. So yeah, maybe that's the reason why it was a really fucked up situation for you. Because his Abraham Accords are directly responsible for October 7th. Directly. And I have not heard that from a single Democrat. It blows my mind that not a single Democrat, because they also went along with the American foreign policy under the Trump administration. This is going to age like milk? What do you mean? What I just said? This is Jared Kushner. Can you explain who exactly he is? Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, married to Trump's daughter, Ivanka, right there. Oh, the piece is going to age like milk.
The biggest message that we've tried to convey to the Israeli leadership now is that now that the war is over, if you want to integrate Israel with the broader Middle East, you have to find a way to help the Palestinian people thrive and do better.
How you doing?
Dude, it's funny because, like, I think it's because Jared Kushner gets so much money from the Gulf states that he literally has the identical position of an Arab sheik. This is literally what the Gulf position is. Look, we want a deal make with you. We love doing deals. We want to be able to have direct lines of flight from Riyadh to Tel Aviv. We want that better than anybody else. But you have to throw us a fucking bone here. You literally have to let the Palestinians breathe a little bit, because otherwise our own people are going to revolt against us. So Jared Kushner has spent so much time, I think, getting funded by these Gulf leaders that he unironically sounds like MBS or some shit. This is a new position that you don't hear from the American government usually. January 2021, the same month that Trump left the White House, Kushner set up affinity partners in the Miami suburb of Sunny Isles Beach. Altogether, he's raised $4.6 billion, including $3.5 billion last year from three of his earlier backers, the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund and the Qatari Sovereign Wealth Fund, and Abu Dhabi-based Lunate. Yeah, he is basically talking exactly like the Gulf leadership is here when he says that.
Well, from my standpoint, Leslie, I'm not in business anymore.
Yeah, but your family is.
But I've divested. Like Jared, I receive no salary, and I pay all.
Does anybody believe this? I mean, even like Trump supporters, I suspect, have to be like, come on, dude. Really? Jared Kushner straight up is using the American government and all of the power it has to straightforwardly farm the Gulf states for everything that they have, for as much money as they'll give him. What are we talking about? Like, sure, maybe in this circumstance, it's actually to the benefit of, like, maybe forcing Israel's hand to commit to a ceasefire as opposed to, like, maximalist positions of ethnic cleansing. But, like, that is crazy to say. That's just an abject lie. Come on, man. 60 Minutes is so washed, bro. That is, woo.
My own expenses.
This has become an issue.
What people call...
Like, people were talking about Hunter Biden selling paintings when Joe Biden was president. And was there some fuckery there? Did Hunter Biden's paintings deserve $1 million or whatever? Absolutely not. But that is inconsequential. That is literally nothing in comparison to what Jared Kushner is doing. That is crazy, man. It's always the same bullshit. Republicans can get away with murder, but even if a Democrat is doing, like, if a Democrat gets into, like, battery or something, okay, then that is the most consequential thing that has ever happened. They're like, this is the worst type of assault we've ever seen. Meanwhile, the Republicans are just, like, slaughtering people with their guns, okay? They're just, like, killing people with guns, being like, I'm a Republican and I'm killing you because you're not a Republican. I hate you. And then they turn around and go, wow, you slap someone in the face? You need to go to a super prison. We need to kill you. We're talking like $5 million to a crack addict versus $5 billion. Not even five, it's more than that. It's like $35 billion. It's crazy. It's crazy. Republicans did a insurrection on January 6th, and then they unironically sat there and yelled about Jamal Bowman pulling the fire alarm. And it's always been the case, and Democrats always fucking fall for this. I assume they love falling for it. They're, like, deliberately doing it, right? But the standards are so out of whack. Like, Roy Moore was such a prolific pedophile that the local law enforcement barred him from going to his local mall where he would go after children. And Republicans put him forward as a viable as their candidate in Alabama. But because that was dominating the news cycle super hard, the Republicans needed to actually shift people's attention and priority away. And in that, they went after Al Franken. Al Franken went down partially because the Democrats themselves literally turned around and said, like, oh, how dare you do this shit at the height of, like, Me Too, because the Republicans were getting slammed over Roy Moore. And Al Franken went down because he had a fake boob touching picture with his Fox News co-host that he was touring with. Kirsten Gillibrand was the responsible party taking out Al Franken. Look, there's still people doing it. Look, Lamau, he was sexist and creepy though. I'm losing my mind. I don't even agree with Al Franken, okay? But understand that these two are not the same dynamics, and especially if you keep falling for it, there is nothing you could do about it. There's nothing we can do about it. Sometimes people have to turn around and be like, hey, this is really up, but an apology is enough, okay? That's it. Do you understand? especially because you have pedophiles that are literally still in office. God damn. That's what it is. It's just the Democrat inability. It's the Democratic Party's inability to play political ball. I don't even like Al Franken. I don't even agree with Al Franken, even though Al Franken is probably, or was probably, more progressive than the average Democrat was. He still was just like a regular run-of-the-mill Democrat. I'm not talking about that shit. What I'm talking about is pure politics. Republicans literally brought up Al Franken as a way to move the conversation away from Roy Moore. And the problem is liberals always eat that bait, hook, line, and sinker. They think, oh, we must maintain some sort of purity politics when no one is actually doing the purity politics at all. No one plays by those rules except for liberals. Just wait. You'll see in the upcoming few days, now that the Republicans are feeling the heat with these text message scandals that are coming out, you're going to watch another wave of Republican psyops. I'm telling you right now, this is how it always works. This is how it always works. Now that the Republicans are receiving a shit ton of heat for how openly racist they are in private correspondences, they're going to turn around and find something. They're going to find another text scandal on the liberal side where like some liberal told a Republican staffer that they think Charlie Kirk was a fascist. And in that process, the entire media cycle led by libtards is going to talk about how damning this is and how they disavow it. I'm telling you, it's going to happen and you will see it happen. They're already trying it with the J. Jones. They're already trying it with the J. Jones. They're like, oh, I don't care about these text messages. I don't care about these text messages. Look at J. Jones. Care about those text messages. They're kind of trying to do that with Graham Plattner right now. It's not working because Graham Plattner is too hog-coded for it to actually be effective. But like, it's just, if only one party cares about maintaining some semblance of like optical purity, because it's not real intellectual honesty or decency at all. It's not any sort of like moral honesty. It's just optics. That's all it is. And if Democrats lean into that, they're going to keep losing over and over again. It is what it is. That's it. The Republicans have endless permission to do whatever they want to do, to be as violent as they want to be as vicious as they want to be. And liberals, on the other hand, immediately buckle. Like a little bit of pressure, no matter how cynical, no matter how deliberately distractive it is, no matter how much of a deliberate deflection it is, liberals love going, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. We have to immediately apologize and also make sure that this guy doesn't run for office ever again. We will vacate the seat for you, sir. Thank you. And then we sit around and we're like, how do we keep getting dominated by the fucking Republicans? Dems actually rely on the hog framing, so they have a good excuse. You're describing the uniparty without realizing it's set up that way on purpose. Really? Al Franken was a real threat to the Democratic Party behaving in the same exact ways that the Republicans are? Come on, man. No, this is like, even within the confines of bourgeois democracy, Democrats are still a bad political party. That's my point. I love that you think I don't realize that Democrats play the role of controlled opposition all the time.
Conflicts of interest, Steve and I call experience and trusted relationships that we have throughout the world. If Steve and I didn't have these deep relationships, the deal that we were able to help get done that freed these hostages would not have occurred.
Oh yeah, that's the 60 Minutes on the Barry Weiss dictated pro-Israel 60 Minutes, and even in all of the pro-Israel sentiment, the administration, in an effort to like separate themselves from the previous administration, the Biden administration, it seems to me like they have revealed some stuff that the previous administration would not. Do you think CBS is full-blown right-wing now? I think CBS is going to play a very important role in making sure that your boomer grandparents who are exhibiting signs of discontent stay servile to the administration, or at least normalize the administration's most like reactionary principles, reactionary perspectives, because it still has a lot of institutional prowess. It has a persuasive capability. Your boomer grandparents don't think that CBS is anything different than the CBS that they grew up watching. So it still has like some semblance of credibility. They might lose the next generation. They will lose our generation, but most legacy publishers have already lost our generation anyway. But the reality of the matter is it's still seen as like a legitimate source of news. And it is definitely very dangerous that a legitimate source of news is even going more right-wing than the center-right attitude that most liberal media already has.